What's up, people? This is We Are Animals MMA. We're gonna talk about my reaction video for the fight this weekend, Kevin Lee versus Rafael dos anjos. So let's start with that fight. In round one, Kevin Lee comes out real hard on dos Anjos. He talked about that in pre-fight stuff, talk about him going pressuring for it, not being countering his opponents and moving and dropping back, taking a back step. So he decided to press forward most time in this fight, probably to his detriment as well. And in the first round, he came out real hard, throwing hard body kicks. He primarily stayed in the orthodox stance. Yeah, he got he shot him for a takedown. Most of the fight got spent along the cage with dos Anjos working. He got taken down. He worked like a butterfly guard and a 2-on-1 along when Kevin Lee had him along the cage. Kevin Lee was going for a head inside single for most of this fight. He would do a 2-on-1 to stop that takedown. He did a fairly good job. Excuse me. He did a fairly good job at stopping that as well, stopping those takedowns and limiting the damage of Kevin Lee. And also, dos Anjos from his southpaw stance, they're both taking advantage of that open stance, orthodox versus southpaw. And dos Anjos in that southpaw stance would land that hard left body kicks, and Kevin Lee was landing hard right body kicks. But in the second round, Kevin Lee shoots along the cage. They end up in that same position, the head inside single, with Rafael dos Anjos going for the 2-on-1. Kevin Lee actually, dos Anjos, let's go out 2-on-1, and then Kevin Lee goes for a slam. He slits his head to the outside, picks up dos Anjos and slams him, and then dos Anjos wraps up a guillotine choke and then uses like a butterfly hook to flip Kevin Lee over to sweep him, and then Kevin Lee rotated back, and then they kind of went back, pressed up against that back of the cage there. In that third round, but in the third and fourth round, dos Anjos started really going to his jab more and establishing that distance with his jab and landing his left hand. Kevin Lee was landing some shots too, but dos Anjos was eating them shots, and Kevin Lee was really missing a fair amount in this fight. Also, as well, dos Anjos wasn't being so defensive and just defending takedowns. He would also shoot his own takedowns and landed about 4 of them with this fight, including in that fourth round where RDA started to box Kevin Lee up and landed a couple nice inside leg kicks, which one of which dropped Kevin Lee to his knees. And Lee also was landing his big right body kick from that orthodox stance. But in the final sequence of that fight in the fourth round, Lee kind of shoots like a suspect takedown, not much energy behind it. In that takedown, RDA defends the single leg, and Kevin Lee kind of just drops down, gives up on the single leg, ends up in the turtle position. So dos Anjos falls him down to the ground, circles out the back, lands about 2 or so punches to his head from that turtle position of Kevin Lee. And then Kevin Lee ends up rolling over, and as soon as he rolls over in that transition, RDA would jump on and take that mount position. And in that mount, as Kevin Lee was holding RDA down, RDA would land like two body shots there to loosen up the grip of Kevin Lee and get him desperate in that position. And that's exactly what happened. Kevin Lee was tired, worn out, came out in a sprint right in the beginning of that fight, and ended up in that position and has had his arm outstretched. He was kind of coming around trying to like power out of that mount position while giving up his he would end up giving up his back actually if he was going to follow through, but RDA cinched up that arm triangle, locked in his arm, drove his shoulder down and put his head down on the mat, and Kevin Lee tapped, and RDA won that fight. But it was a great win for RDA. Kevin Lee was moving up in weight to go up to the welterweight division. He thought that would help it with his cardio, but I think he just experience-wise and learned how to pace himself throughout a whole entire fight. And RDA was striking in those positions that people don't deem that is effective, but those little shots add up. So when Kevin Lee was pressing against the cage, pressing RDA against the cage, RDA would land those knees. As soon as Kevin Lee would get in a little space, he would throw a knee, or he would throw, I think he caught him with an elbow as well, during a moment in that fight, and like little punches to the head and to the body in those positions to get Kevin Lee to move and get desperate. All those strikes do add up. Those are the positions that RDA used to gas out Kevin Lee. He beat him in the space, and in those clinch positions, while Kevin Lee was trying to take him down, RDA was defending takedowns while also landing those strikes on Kevin Lee in those little sequences that normally people won't be able to see because they're not, I guess, significant enough. But great win for RDA. He's going to be moving up to that division. He lost two straight fights to Kamaru Usman, the champ, and Colby Covington in that match. And Kevin Lee, he's been lost this fight. That was his welterweight debut. We'll see if he stays in that division. Before that, he lost in a 5-round fight at lightweight to Ali Quinta. But that welterweight division is getting pretty tough, and they got a couple lightweights that are also moving up to fight in that division. All right, other fights in the card: Antonio Carlos Jr. Shoeface versus Ian Heinisch. Antonio, he controlled most of the grappling exchanges along the clinch and the ground, while Ian was defending some subs and the strikes. On the outside, Ian was landing some like calf kicks, some check hooks on Shoeface. But also in that fight, let's talk about the blatant fence grabs. The refs freaking yelling at Heinisch, saying, "Don't grab the fence, don't grab the fence." And throughout that whole entire fight, he was grabbing the fence for the 3 rounds that the fight went. He kept grabbing the fence blatantly, and then Shoeface, in those moments, he would try to. He literally on Heinisch's back along the cage, and they're scraping along the cage. And Heinisch is slowly grabbing the cage with his hands. Shoeface tried to yank him down. Then Heinisch put his fingers interlocked inside the cage and then yanked it. And then Shoeface couldn't even get him down right there because Heinisch is blatantly grabbing the fence, and the ref is just sitting there like, oh, continue. And then Heinisch would use those moments to strike Shoeface and call him with a nice backwards elbow when Shoeface was on his back. He would throw like his left elbow to Antonio's face there along the cage. And in those moments, he can get damage, and he's complaining to the ref. I understand that you can't really. You're in a fight, you got to keep fighting, and you can't just keep complaining to the ref. Otherwise, your opponent's going to strike and hit you, and that's what pretty much Heinisch was doing. He was like being a real dog in there. And those, he kept scrambling up to during most of those takedowns that Shoeface was landing on him. But Shoeface ended up getting pretty much couldn't really submit, get a good submission on Ian. He defended well and used his own grappling and got some reversals on Shoeface as well. So he shows that he has some capabilities in the grappling department, and that Shoeface is accustomed to. And he ended up just wearing him out and landing some pretty good strikes at the end of that 3rd round on the ground. But but it all comes down to that freaking ref. If your fighter's gonna grab the cage and you're just gonna yell the whole time saying, all these fighters know the rules before the fight, like eye pokes, scoring strikes, and all that cage grabs. They need to start enforcing these rules and start deducting a point. It clearly affected the fight, and Shoeface is trying to get takedowns, and him grabbing the cage, preventing that, and with no warning, It's kind of ridiculous now at this point. But he did end up being some payback. He let a little knee to the groin on Heinisch. Give him a little payback on that one. But this was a good card. There's 9 finishes, I believe, on this card. Vicente Luque got a KO. Has a little bit of early adversity by the newcomer Derek Krantz. Hit him with like a right overhand. Stumbled him just a little bit. Nothing too significant though. Kind of took Vicente's back. Threatened rear naked choke on Vicente. And he also threatened a guillotine as Vicente rolled. But Vicente had the better striking prowess, where he ended up, he knew in the post fight, he said he knew Krantz would tire out after all those big movements to trying to get him out there quick and making his UFC debut, because there's nerves and all that. But Vicente hit him with a 1-2, stumbled Krantz, and then Luque went in in the clinch, landed a beautiful knee, which dropped Krantz to the mat. And then he also landed a left hook after that knee to really hurt him. And then he falls to the ground. He's like like a chin lock in the front with his right arm. Had his hand underneath the chin, pinning him down, putting shoulder pressure down on Krantz, and lands a couple right hands to finish off that fight. And that's 5 straight wins for Vicente Luque in that welterweight division. He had the KO over Krantz he just had. He had a KO and a barn burner against Brian Barberena, and then a KO of Jalen Turner, KO of Chad LaPriest, and then he got a door stroke on Nico Price. So he should be getting a top 10, top 5 opponent at this point. You need to get him in there, especially with all these wins that he has stringed together. All right, what else is good on this card here? Felicia Spencer, the Invicta featherweight champ, came over and fought Megan Anderson and got a rear naked choke on her. Right in the first round, Megan definitely got exposed in this fight. Her ground game is not up to par with the rest of the division or the rest of her peers in the UFC. Holly Holm, who is not known to be like a takedown artist, took her down, controlled her on the ground, moved around, and sliced through her guard and got mount on her, just like this newcomer Felicia Spencer. And she landed some significant strikes on Megan as she got her down to the ground and just put her out. So she can move up in the division. Megan Anderson got some soul searching to do. She needs to definitely work on her ground game. And that featherweight division is just super thin right now. Hardly any women in that division at all. But what else? We got Charles Oliveira with a nice KO of Nick Lentz, which was definitely a good fight and a great fight for Oliveira in this matchup. Oliveira, he come out as that Muay Thai stance, coming and pressing forward on Lentz, landing beautiful teeps and straight rights. His boxing looks improved too as well. Lentz is the southpaw. Oliveira was coming out in that orthodox position. And anytime Lentz would try to land his strikes and try to get inside, Oliveira goes straight to that clinch. His clinch game is amazing. Landing elbows and knees and clinch range, and then staying on the outside and then countering Lentz as he came inside. And he did a beautiful job of countering the kicks of Lentz. I bet he countered like 3 kicks of Lentz. As soon as Lentz would kick, he would either catch the kick or just counter right off the bat. Nice thing about Oliveira, an interesting thing about Oliveira, I would say, the way he likes to enter when he wants to get in close to his opponents. So he feels like the opponents are too far away, he'll do jumping front kicks. He connected with a jumping front kick right on Nick Lentz, or he'll do like a flying knee. He uses that too, even when he's out of distance, out of range. He'll just jump in like that just to close that distance and end up like close into a clinch range position. Lentz tried a takedown of his own, and Oliveira immediately swept him. Oliveira's ground game is so good. He immediately sweeps him and he used like a guillotine threat. This to set up his big strikes. if Lentz defended that. And he also landed he also held in a nice guillotine on Lentz. And Lentz actually was about to tap, or maybe he tapped once in that position, and the ref didn't do anything, and then he slipped out. But he was definitely on the verge. His hand pops up, and he was ready to tap, and then ready to give up right there. Oliveira, it was a nice. Like I said, his hands definitely improved to match with his kicks and his tremendous ground game. He had nice sharp boxing, nice jab, nice right uppercuts. Sometimes he would throw like a lead elbow front kick to the body, or like an arcing like a round kick, I guess I want to say, to the body as well. That lands that to land on the solar plexus of his opponent, with the ball of his foot. The finishing sequence, which was in that second round, Lentz threw his a switch kick from that southpaw stance. Oliveira catches it briefly and lands a straight right, drops him, falls. Lentz was rocked right there, falls to the ground and landed some tremendous hammer fist. And he also held Lentz's leg, his top leg, up in the air as he was landing those hammer fists and put him out in that match. But that was a great win for Oliveira in that fight, and he's on a tremendous win streak as well. 5-fight win streak, and all 5 of those wins, just like Vicente Luque in the welterweight division. In the lightweight division, he's on a 5-fight finish streak as well, just like Vicente. So both of those guys need top 5 opponents. They need to stop messing around with these fighters. If they got tremendous win streaks like that, they need to get their shot at some gold, or at a top contender at least. Aspen Ladd in that bantamweight division took a unanimous decision against Sijara Eubanks. That was a rematch fight. It was definitely a closely contested fight. They both were landing some big shots. Sijara landed some big hooks to the body and to the head, and getting some takedowns. Aspen Ladd was pressing forward, landing her jabs, landing her 1-2s in that match. It was a close fight. I thought Sijara won that fight, but I'll probably have to go back and watch it again just to reiterate it, get a better look at it. When you watch it the first time, you can miss some things. There's some distractions and whatnot, but I thought Sijara won. Desmond Green, the hometown guy out of Rochester, he won his fight unanimous decision against Charles Jourdain. Desmond looked good out there. He was looked real sharp in his stand-up and in his ground game, landing 4 takedowns on the newcomer, Charles Jourdain. Jourdain's a young guy. He's like 23 or something like that, fighting out of TKO. It's an organization out in Canada. But I seen him fight there. I think he's a very good fighter, good stand-up, good ground game. So he got a lot to work on. Obviously, he's young, so he'll be learning. Then you got Michel Pereira versus Danny Roberts. This guy is like a capoeira. He's like Johnny Walker-esque type of guy, doing front flips in the cage, running along the cage, trying to land Superman punches, jumping knees, kicks. This guy was just doing everything out there in a short amount of time. And with all those big movements he was doing, he was just confusing Danny Roberts, and Danny Roberts didn't really know what this guy was going to do. I didn't even think Pereira knew what he was going to do, but he lands a killer flying knee right on Danny Roberts' face and knocks him out. But this guy is definitely going to be an entertaining fighter in that division. What division is that anyway? This guy was fighting at I believe it's the welterweight division. Yeah, the welterweight division. He's an excellent addition to that division. He got a high octane style. It's sort of like Johnny Walker. He's from Brazil as well. They call him the Demolador. I pronounced that definitely incorrectly, but not sure what that means. But this guy definitely, I'll definitely keep an eye on him in the future. Any other interesting stuff on there? Grant Dawson choked out Michael Chisano. Chisano's a good fighter, good boxing, very good hands. Dawson's a ground game specialist. Used those takedowns to get that rear naked choke in the second round. In the first round, Chisano was doing well. Grant definitely had to overcome some adversity. Chisano was piecing him up on the outside in his realm, which is the stand-up. And then once he got to the ground now, Chisano didn't really have an answer for him, and then gave up that choke, which was great. Ed Herman got a nice KO over Patrick Cummins, two veterans. That's a good win for him in a first round KO. That's definitely a good matchup. Both of them are up there in age. UFC veterans, 38 years old. Definitely an evenly matched fight there. Well, might as well mention those other finishes. Zach Cummins got a guillotine choke in the third round over Trevin Giles. And Julio Arce had a nice KO kick against Julian Erosa in the first fight of the night. That was a great, good fight by Julio Arce. He was very patient. Erosa was pushing him back along the cage. He was staying patient, and he would start landing those left high kicks on Erosa. Rosa keeps his hands down, didn't really bring him up. And when Rosa defends kicks, he defended with one arm, which is not good enough for defending a head kick. You can easily just kick right through that arm and right into your head. That's a horrible defense for kicks, especially to the head. Rosa has plenty of fights, so he is who he is, hands down. Gritty fighter, likes to throw. Arce is the more technical fighter, and has set up that beautiful KO head kick in the third round. But I think that's the end of this breakdown, this reaction video to the UFC Fight Night Rochester. Be sure to check out my other stuff, like the video, subscribe, and tell me what you think. Until next time, peace.